The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the usual collection of pompous windbags, all convinced their species had cracked the code to universal enlightenment. I sat there, all 6 of my tentacles twitching with boredom, watching the VRWN delegate drone on about trade routes nobody cared about. Then came the motion that changed everything. "We propose," announced High Chancellor Vexus, his triple-jointed fingers steepled dramatically, "the removal of the Terran seat. 500 cycles of vacancy is quite enough, wouldn't you agree?" A murmur rippled through the chamber. The human chair, that symbolic empty throne at the far end of the council floor, had been sitting unused since Earth declined membership all those centuries ago. Most species had forgotten it even existed. I certainly had. "Seconded," barked the Crolian representative, his scales practically glowing with satisfaction, and just like that, with zero fanfare and even less thought, they voted. 17 in favor, 3 abstaining, none against. The humans, after all, weren't there to object. They had ghosted us so completely that removing their chair felt less like an insult and more like spring cleaning. The maintenance drones hauled away the Terran seat within the hour. Good riddance, I thought. More room for the refreshment table. 48 hours later, the first human ship appeared, not at the council station. Oh no, that would have been too diplomatic, too predictable. Instead, it materialized in the middle of the Crolian home fleet, sitting there like a dinner guest who showed up unannounced and immediately raided your refrigerator. The vessel was grotesque. Angular where ships should curve, bristling with weapons that looked less designed and more welded on by someone having a creative tantrum. Its hull was painted, if you can believe it, bright blue with yellow stripes. Who does that? "Attention Crolian Defense Command," came the transmission, broadcast on every frequency imaginable, including several we didn't know existed. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran vessel, absolutely no worries. We've noticed you boys have been expanding into the Deneb sector. That's adorable. Really. But here's the thing, that sector? That's ours. Has been for 200 years. You'd know that if you'd bothered to check." The Crolian admiral, a decorated war hero named Thrax, sputtered something about sovereign space and territorial claims and legal precedents. Captain Webb laughed. Actually laughed. Legal precedents? Oh, that's rich. Tell you what, Admiral Thrax, we're going to give you 60 seconds to vacate our 73 mining stations, our 12 agricultural platforms, and our rather lovely resort colony on Deneb 7. 60. 59. 58, they were bluffing, obviously. One ship against an entire fleet? Suicidal. Stupid. Impossible, Thrax called their bluff. The humans opened fire at 0. I watched the tactical readouts from the council station, my skin turning 3 shades paler than my species' biology should allow. That single human ship tore through the Crolian fleet like a hurricane through tissue paper. Their weapons, some kind of kinetic energy nonsense that ignored shields completely, turned battleships into expanding clouds of debris. Their point defense system swatted aside missiles like annoying insects. The entire engagement lasted 4 minutes. When the smoke cleared, metaphorically speaking, 62 Crolian warships were gone. The human vessel had sustained 0 damage. Not light damage. Not acceptable losses. 0. "Thanks for playing," came Webb's voice, still casual, still amused. "We'll be keeping this sector, boys. And before any of you other council members get bright ideas, we've currently got 14 fleets positioned around our territories. You won't see them, obviously. That's rather the point. But they're there. Waiting. Watching. Hoping you'll do something entertainingly stupid." Chancellor Vexus immediately called an emergency session. Everyone attended. Nobody wanted to miss this disaster. This is an act of war. Thrax roared, his remaining ships limping back to their home system. Actually, I found myself saying, surprising everyone including myself, it's a response to colonization. The humans never ceded those territories. We just assumed, because they weren't sitting in this chamber pretending to care about our opinions, that they'd vanished. Vexus glared at me with all three of his eyes. Whose side are you on, Counselor Mira? Reality's side, I shot back. The humans didn't leave Galactic Affairs. They just stopped attending our meetings. There's a difference. Another delegate, a crystalline being named Kair, chimed in nervously. Perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact? Before this escalates further? Oh, it's going to escalate, I muttered, checking the incoming data streams flooding my terminal. I was right. Over the next 72 hours, humanity revealed what they'd been doing for 5 centuries while we'd been debating seating arrangements and arguing about proper diplomatic protocols. They'd built an empire. Not through conquest or subjugation, but through simple, relentless expansion into spaces we'd considered worthless, dead systems. Human mining operations. Asteroid fields. Human manufacturing hubs. That radiation-soaked nebula everyone avoided? Humans had 17 cities in there, somehow thriving in conditions that would liquefy most species. They'd been busy. Very busy. And we'd removed their chair. The second message arrived during what was supposed to be a dignified apology session. High Chancellor Vexus had drafted this elaborate statement, full of flowery language about misunderstandings and renewed cooperation. Real diplomatic garbage, the kind that means nothing but sounds impressive. Then every screen in the council chamber flickered to life simultaneously. A human woman appeared, middle-aged by their standards, wearing what looked like casual civilian clothes. No military uniform. No intimidating posture. She was drinking something from a mug that read "Galaxy's Okayest Diplomat" in bright letters. "Hello, Council," she said cheerfully. "I'm Ambassador Riley Jackson. Yes, that's my real title. Yes, I know we haven't had formal contact in 5 centuries. Awkward, right?" Vexus attempted to respond, but she held up one hand. "Nope. My turn to talk. You've had 500 years. Now sit down, shut up, and listen, because apparently you people need a refresher course in basic interstellar etiquette." My translator chip nearly malfunctioned. Nobody spoke to the council like that. Nobody. Ambassador Jackson took a long sip from her mug. "So. You removed our chair. Cute. Real cute. Let me explain what that chair represented. It wasn't a seat we were keeping warm for some future diplomatic reunion. It was a marker. A boundary. A big flashing sign that said, Earth is part of this galaxy whether we show up to your meetings or not. You removed it. You essentially told 300 billion humans that we don't matter." She paused, her expression shifting from casual to something considerably colder. "Big mistake." The tactical displays around the chamber suddenly lit up. Hundreds of human ships decloaking across council space. Not threatening. Not advancing. Just sitting there. Visible. Waiting. "Here's what's going to happen," Jackson continued. "First, you're going to acknowledge every single territorial claim we've filed over the past 5 centuries. All 7,412 of them. Second, you're going to establish formal trade agreements on our terms, not yours. Third, and this is my personal favorite, you're going to reinstate our seat. But here's the twist, we're still not going to use it." Counselor Kair, bless his crystalline confusion, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Then why demand it back?" Jackson smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Because it's ours. Because you don't get to decide when humanity matters and when we don't. Because symbols have power, and you just learned that lesson the expensive way." The VRWNN delegate, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke up. "You cannot seriously expect the council to capitulate to threats." "Threats?" Jackson laughed, and I felt my tentacles curl involuntarily. "Admiral Kozlov, could you give our friends a demonstration? Something small. Uninhabited system. Make it pretty. Another screen activated, showing a barren solar system 14 light-years from Council space. 3 human vessels moved into formation. They fired something, some kind of coordinated weapon pulse, directly at the system star. The star sneezed. Actually sneezed. Ejected a solar flare that consumed 2 planets and rearranged the orbits of the remaining 4. Stellar engineering, Jackson explained casually. We've gotten quite good at it. Terraforming too. Oh, and those space stations you think are our military bases? Those are actually our schools. The military bases are somewhere else. We're not telling you where. The chamber had gone absolutely silent. Even Thrax, who'd been demanding vengeance an hour ago, looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Now, Jackson said, her tone shifting back to cheerful, let's talk about what happens next. We're not interested in joining your council debates. We've read the transcripts. You people spend 6 months arguing about comma placement in trade agreements. We've got better things to do. But we are interested in open borders, mutual defense pacts with species who aren't idiots, and access to your fancy restaurants. I've heard the Zenari make excellent pasta. That's not a threat. I just really like pasta. Vexus, recovering some composure, managed to speak. And if we refuse? Jackson's smile widened. Then we'll just keep doing what we've been doing. Expanding. Building. Thriving. Without you. Eventually, you'll become irrelevant. We'll be the ones other species come to for protection, for trade, for alliance. Your precious council will be a historical footnote. A social club nobody important attends. She leaned closer to the camera. Your choice, Chancellor. Partner with us, or become a memory. Clock's ticking. The transmission ended. The emergency vote took 6 minutes. Unanimous approval of all human demands. The Terran chair was reinstalled within the hour, polished to perfection, adorned with a small plaque that read, "Reserved for Earth, whether they show up or not." They didn't show up, of course. The chair sat empty, a reminder that humanity didn't need validation from a council of self-important bureaucrats, but now, every delegate who walked past that empty seat remembered the lesson. The humans weren't absent because they were weak. They were absent because they didn't need us, and that, I realized as I returned to my station, tentacles still twitching, was the most terrifying thing of all. Somewhere out there, humanity was building, expanding, living their lives completely unbothered by our opinions. They'd become the galaxy's most powerful species by simply not caring what anyone else thought. The chair remained empty. But nobody would ever forget what it represented again.